Welcome to Breaking Bread and Any podcast, y'all. I got a great and special podcast for you today. Where I'm gonna let Moni Love introduce us to our podcast. I'm Central G. This is Moni Love, and we got a special guest. I'm gonna pass on to my co-host.
I want to formally invite you to the Breaking Bread Infinity podcast and thank you for making time for We Buy Black. So we welcome Shareef to our podcast. Thank you for being part of this show. We would like to hear all about what you do, how you do it, where you do it from. I know you know how to bring it, so I'm going to give you the floor right now and let our listeners know about what We Buy Black is.
Most definitely. So We Buy Black is an online marketplace that supports, promotes, advocates Black-owned businesses and showcase Black-owned businesses. We got started in 2015 through a crowdfund, and we raised enough funds to launch the site. And it's been on since then. We've networked with so many businesses in our community, but I noticed in the midst of it all that what was necessary in order for this type of business to work, it would need to be a movement behind it. A movement for economic dignity, for us to be creating our own products, and for us to support each other and eventually see a day where, 50%, 40%, even 30% of the product inside of our household will be coming from our community. That we will have to get some level or some share of this market within our community, but the average African-American household that you go into, over 99% of the product is not from their community. And a big part of that is because over 99% of the product inside of the stores in which they purchase are not from our community. So the purpose of establishing this website was to bring exposure to all of the products that we actually are creating in our community. And then the second part was to wake up those individuals who work for these larger big box corporations and let them know, like, we could care less about being in your store, but if you are a part and say that you are a part of our community, then do everything that you can to ensure that these products that are being produced from your people are actually in that store. So that's So that is the movement of We Buy Black. We Buy Black always have like spikes, and sad to say that the spikes sort of come from something tragic happening within our community. Mm-hmm. And that always was a problem for me, like it's a problem psychologically. It weighed on me a lot. I noticed how a lot of other businesses just sort of took advantage of it. It's like, oh man, like so-and-so got killed, put this product out there, let's go. But for me, it was just like, it was something that I couldn't turn off. It was something that I couldn't really look at it that way. And typically on those days, I really wanted to shut down business. I really didn't want to do anything, but I realized that it was for a lot of other people that was working with us, it was an opportunity for them to really get the exposure that they needed. So I had to keep it going. But when that happened with Mike Brown, it happened with Philandro Castile, it happened with Sandra Bland, Eric Garner, Tamir Rice, it happened with more recently George Floyd. These were all times where you could see a significant spike in sales on the site. And then after that, it sort of like levels off. And that always sort of like bothered me in the past. So I said, well, what we're going to need to do is to create a very strong movement behind, doing for ourselves, creating our own product, etc. And we could talk more about it, but it's interesting how when people realize the direction you're going, then how they jump in the way and they use your own people to get in the way. It's very interesting. It's very interesting because you would never see it. I saw it coming from the jump, and I used to put language out there like, this is what we should expect. Like I would say things like, this is We Buy Black. It doesn't say we buy from Black men. It doesn't say we buy from tall people. It doesn't say we buy, it just says We Buy Black. And allow me and trust me to lead this particular movement. because, and this is not to toot my horn, but it's similar to what Eugene said earlier, it's just the environment that I've actually been placed in and the circumstances that I actually lived through, that you could trust me to do something like this. You know, you could trust me in this area like this. I come from a community where it was our leaders that actually did. Malcolm X is literally from our community. I'm not in the nation, but my family was in the nation and we made the transformation. People that literally that I deal with on a day-to-day basis are people who used to be the secretary for Malcolm X or used to be the bodyguard for Elijah Muhammad, or et cetera, et cetera. So these are the people that I'm dealing with. And these are the same people that's holding me accountable for doing the job that I'm trying to do. But in the same breath, it's something that it has to take the community as a whole in order to make this type of thing work. And there's going to be tactics that people who understand how powerful this type of movement could be, that they would insert, and it's many of them out there, but it's just the way that they do it is very interesting. But needless to say, the movement that we started has sparked so many different things within our community. That,
not to jump in, but just to add to, I was just thinking about that in the past, since you started the program in 2015, have you seen an increase in Black entrepreneurs? Like yes, an increase in Black entrepreneurs.
Ooh,
have you?
Yeah. Oh, most definitely. Like what we did is like, what we did, we set a lot of things on fire. Let me say that. There are more Black grocery stores forming now than there have been in the past, all because, and not just any grocery store, these are grocery stores that are forming with the idea of carrying Black-owned products. This was not the talk, because a lot of people didn't see it as possible. And we helped make that vision possible by starting, as Eugene talked about earlier, starting the toothbrush company. It's something basic, it's something that people can use twice a day. It's the first thing that you use, first tool that you use in the morning, but now it's Black owned. You know, laundry detergent, dish soap, trash bags, toilet paper, exactly. So these are products that we wanted to create to send the message out there to our community that even if it's a small store that you have, these are the basic things that we're producing in our community that you can start a store with, these basic things. And since then, we've seen so many things being created. I'm getting ready to dive into this product here called Caribbean Delight. It's granola. Oh, can you see it?
Move it over a little bit. Caribbean Delight. There we go.
Caribbean Delight.
Gotcha.
Okay.
It's from a company called Amazing. But Black owned, you know, they make like granola, and it's so it's really a part of like what we do is just to make the movement that we started help everyone open their minds up to all the things that we actually create in our community. And there's a lot of stuff that we were not creating, like everything that I mentioned, with an exception to like the detergent and the toilet tissue, was not being created until the movement. And then the people that were creating these items, they were on the brink of going out of business until we stepped in the picture and then helped boost their companies. You know, I've seen a total of like over 6 toilet tissue companies. It's a very hard business to be in. And I've counseled with all 6 and tried to help support all 6 thrive and brought in hundreds of thousands for all 6. However, it's a tough business to be in if you don't have storefronts.
Right.
You don't have stores because it's difficult to ship that huge product. I mean, toilet tissue, if you got a 48 pack today, it may cost you around $40 or so. In the stores now, they charge closer to $1 a pack, so maybe $48 a pack for 48 rolls. But to ship that, you know, it's $48, but to ship that's going to cost you the same, if not more, just to ship it. And that's what makes it really difficult, especially when you're going up against giants like Amazon, et cetera. So in order to really make that work, you have to have, you know, trailers delivering pallets to storefronts to help get these products out to your community, et cetera. It's the same thing with water, like the bottled water you showed me earlier today, that those, it's like trying to ship that is extremely difficult. Yeah, so the Level Bottled Water Company. So that's very difficult to try to ship that. You got a 16 pack, that's probably around 20 pounds.
Right.
You know, trying to ship 20 pounds of water.
It's heavy, the costs go up.
Yeah.
It's tough.
But if you're delivering it to storefronts, you know, where they could carry it, you're just doing a drop at all these different stores, then it make it a lot more easier. So our process has to become a lot more efficient if we're going to compete out in the world. We're going to have to work together, and it's not going to be everyone, and it doesn't necessarily take everyone. It just takes a good solid few who have enough influence and enough strength and power, like what we have here on the podcast, you know, who are reaching people. So I don't expect everyone who's listening to start a podcast, but I expect everyone who's listening to your podcast to take action. Correct. Right. And that's what really matters. So yeah, so has it increased? Absolutely. I mean, I never seen so many Black folk on camera pushing Black, you know, or pushing financial education, pushing
Black excellence.
Ways, yeah, just exactly all around. And many of them that I can think of, many of them know me on they know of me, they know me when they see me, especially like in the last four years or so. I would just be at different places, and these individuals, a lot of these individuals run up to me and kind of and speak with me. And I didn't know them, but I took note of them right then and there. They would say, man, yeah, I got this going on, et cetera. And I would take note. And then I would go back and look at them, and I was like, wow, like this is crazy, but this is what we wanted.
Right. Would you say that's inspiration? I'm sorry to cut you off. Would you say that'd be inspiration for, I said, the younger generation, so Gen Z, millennial generation, just to help them see what you do and it's actually coming to fruition? Would you say, do you see in your daily life, hey, I want to have that impact from the younger generation, from Gen Z, and say, I want to do what you're doing, or I want to have We Buy Black? And how can the kids of today actually start educating themselves so they can start on the path or the journey to get to the level where you are at a younger age, just so they could have be real successful in their own way?
But I want to add to that before you jump into that piece.
Okay.
Because you had a lot of tenacity, and I love the way you spoke about your mom being an inspiration. I took value in that, of course, being a mom myself. And then when I look at, and when I hear you speak about that and then talk about that, of course, as I mentioned earlier, I deal with children in foster care. So the children in foster care don't necessarily have what we grew up with. They don't have that parental figures in the household guiding them. So with that, it took a lot of tenacity on your part to get there. I just want our youth to hear from you how that shaped you, you know, and then what can they do? What value, what gem can you give them to help them move forward, to make them believe in themselves that they could do it too?
Yeah, so yeah, my environment is interesting, but it is my environment that really shaped me to be who I am. And I think that that's why it's critical that we put our youth in the correct environment. And we pretty much do everything we can, sacrifice it all to put them in the correct environment, because your environment, like nature versus nurture, your environment has a very strong impact on who you're going to be.
Sure it does.
A very strong impact on who you're going to be. And the first environment is the family. It's the first environment. Yeah. So as a community, we have to be extremely intentional on studying historically what has kept communities strong and together. That's absolutely important. And we have to, because if we have to study it, because that's the only way that's going to sort of guarantee that we are going to be successful as a community. Yeah. communities start with families and families start with individuals.
Right.
So being able to focus in on those individuals and say, okay, we all should be educated. We all should be financially suited. We all should have X, Y, and Z, these things prepared. And then we should marry and come together. And then we should have children, et cetera. And then we should raise them with these same values. And then we should be a part of other people who think like this. And that forms these communities. And then these communities sort of grow out and have a much larger influence on neighborhoods, et cetera. And I know from the community that I come from, the things that I mentioned today are the things that they've already mentioned before. It's like nothing different. For example, like the We Buy Black movement. It's similar to the economic side of what you'll find with Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad in the nation of the time. They were pushing for the same thing, that we spending our money because we're trying to be like everybody else. We want to look like everybody else, etc. So it was the same concept. It was just that what we created was just another way of helping to reach more people during this time. In fact, we graduated, like our community graduated from using the language Black, and we were told not to even use the language Black, and not in we were advised not to use the language Black. I put it that way. So the reason why I decided to use it anyway was mainly to capture like those young people that you were speaking of, because I knew that was a language that could reach them.
Right.
No matter really where you go. So it was more strategic. It wasn't really what I wanted, but it was more strategic. And it worked. It actually worked. I think it definitely done more good than bad. But my main thing is that we also want to provide an environment too.
Yeah.
When you go to like We Buy Black page on Instagram or wherever we have postings, you'll see that there's a certain level of consistency when it comes to what we promote. Like we don't, and it's all family friendly. Like I don't have, like, you won't be able to go to We Buy Black and find, half naked women promoting lingerie. You won't be able to go to the site and find, hair weave and different things like that. There's certain things that I actually protected our community from, even though I know it's a huge industry. Right. Like the hair weave industry is one of the largest industries within the Black community. Hair weave and hair care industry is one of the largest. Out of the 1.3 some trillion the money that we're spending, the majority of a category in which we spend those dollars is in the hair care industry. And within that it's a lot of it goes to hair weave. People spend $1,000+ for someone else's hair to put on their head.
Don't get me started on the hair weave thing. I have to clutch on. I can't speak on that because this will go real left real fast.
Oh, okay.
I have my locks for a reason.
Yeah. But it's, but these are the things, again, like I said, that you could find in old, you hit the old video of Malcolm X saying, "Who told you to hate your son? Who told you to hate your nose?" So it's like, these are the things, like this is like, that's a very long time ago, 80 years ago, and here we are today. We're saying the exact same thing. We're still trying to reach our people. I think what we have to do though, is for the sake of protecting our community most, I think that the next strategy, because you could go online and you could hear people saying, "Oh, get into real estate." Right. Get into real estate. There's nothing wrong with being in real estate. However, I will always advise any family to introduce your children to the We Buy Black movement first.
Absolutely. Introduce
them to the We Buy Black movement, because there's a certain philosophy that comes with that type of movement. And then once sort of understanding and sort of indoctrinated to a sense into that type of philosophy, then they can have a mind that is protected to then be able to go and listen to the advice of a lot of other people.
Right.
Because what we are coming with is consistent. See, being in real estate, is nothing wrong being real estate, but if you're in real estate and you're just flipping homes and you're the one that's making money from it individually, how does that impact your community?
Right.
What is that doing? You're just making money. And what are you doing with the money? So then when we go to your page and we see that you're showing your nice car and we see that you're showing your nice this and your nice that, then really it's a sellout. It's just another form of sellout. You told us, you showing us how to make money, and we could appreciate that.
Right.
100, we love that. But it's not about how much money you can make. It's about what you do with the money once you get it.
That's something we look into, definitely.
Yeah.
You don't know where to spend the money.
Yeah, and not just how much money you make, and not even just what you do with it when you get it, but then also how much money can you keep within your community? That's so important. Like this is literally the knowledge that no one else goes on the internet and talks about. The Chinese doesn't go on the internet and talk about these. These things are fundamental to them.
Correct. And
it's fundamental to everyone. But these are the things that We Buy Black is talking. So it's like you got a big movement today talking about get vending machines. There's nothing wrong with having vending machines. See, but if you come through the We Buy Black movement first, and you understand the We Buy Black movement first, then it really would say, well, you know what? We're gonna get a vending machine, but we're not gonna put Dasani in there. We're gonna put level in it.
Yeah.
So you see what I'm saying? So it's like we could still make money, but we're gonna help our community make money in that process. You see, and that's the difference, because if we don't follow that type of logic, then what ultimately happens is that we just become like decorated cheerleaders for everyone else's company. We're going around and we've got vending machine here. I got 100 vending machines, but the real money is being made from people who are buying the Dasani water and people who are buying all the Coke products and everybody else's products. So no one in your community has benefited from you having 100 vending machines, except for you. And now we got to trust that you're going to do right with the money that you get, because you got 100 vending machines and you make $100,000 a month, but you live off somewhere, right, isolated, don't even come see your family no more. You you got everything else going on and spending money with everybody else, and now you don't even want to buy. You don't want to buy nothing from your own community because you feel like what your community offering is not of value, or the money that you have it could buy better. So this is like what I see happening, that it just needs to be controlled in our community. And you'll see me like I said, I've been last 2-3 years, I've been kind of back, but like kind of off screen, but I will sort of kind of get out there and kind of check some of these things, like check some of these movements that I see, and just in a good way. It's like, nah, keep doing what y'all doing, but I'm not about to let y'all steer our community off. Exactly. About waving dollars in their face. Nah.
I think that once people, okay, so I'm gonna be a little transparent too, because I didn't know about Tulsa until what? I was 30, which is sad. I didn't go to the HBCU. I went to a local university here, and like you, I have my degree in sociology and psychology. And when I learned about Tulsa and what our people did in Tulsa with Black Wall Street, and then learning more about the other communities they had similar to that, that was empowering. That made me feel so proud of who we were as people. I was like, we could do that again. We don't have to be scared. We don't have to worry about them people come and do something to us anymore, because we are stronger now as a community. We sit better right now as a community. We have programs and other strong people in our community like yourself taking on other places so we can feel more connected. It's like we feel more stable, I would say, in a place where we can stand on our 2 legs and make a movement like that. I would say in my younger years, I didn't feel like I could do anything like that, but learning more about who we were as a people, being established the way we were, how powerful we were, not that we were just, the little sad little slave that just got beat up all the time and didn't really do anything. No, that's not my reality. That is not even facts. So today, when we are making movements and we're making these power moves on different levels, I am so proud to see what you're doing and what other Black people are doing, and then making that happen, you know. And like you said, they do have those few who don't fully get it, and these conversations are going to help them get it.
And there's definitely a contributor to the exposure that we also talk about, where you have exposure to people, like you say, in your environment, having people like you, having influencers that could look into, that's more than the music industry or more than filming. We could have a broad range of fields that we could go to, but you have people in there you could look up to in those specific fields. It could be doctors, it could be entrepreneurship with household products instead of just hair. You could do, hey, I want to make toothbrushes, I want to make toilet paper. It said to the kids, that's inspiring, that's motivation, because some people are afraid to be the first, you know. So we want to preach that, hey, you don't have to be the first if you don't want to. You can be if you want to, but you don't have to be. But there's probably someone in that space that could teach you and that could lead you. And having that leadership or that guidance or that path or that blueprint, it gives them the confidence to go in. And I feel like having the kids look at that path is inspire them to really reach for new heights, and then setting that bar way higher than it needs, way higher than it is currently. If we set our bar up here and they understand that potential that it could get way up here, that's motivation, that's more fruition they could come in their life, that's more, they being more successful, that being more generational wealth. That also means less poverty, less more kids eating every day, less crime, just through education and just through the mentorship and just through the influences that happen every day. Just seeing those people in those spaces, just seeing them is inspiration for kids. So I think that's something very important, and that's something that we had touched on, and that's how you build community impact, and that's what we need to start doing.
Yeah, I think that, and that's something that we're very passionate about. We get involved with our community and our politics. We really want to promote in our community. Unfortunately, I have I'm gonna be very transparent again. I have a love-hate relationship with New Orleans. You know, there's some things about this city that's absolutely amazing. I mean, the music here, the food here, absolutely. You know, we got some things going on. Mm-hmm. However, to be labeled currently as the murder capital of the United States is devastating to me. And then in the juvenile justice system in which I work, I see our people, our children being, you know, cattled in and judged by who we see on the benches, not us, you know, and doing, this is an everyday scene for me. So a point where it just really got, okay, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to sit here and whine and cry about it? Or are we going to do something about it? Right. How are we going to make the bigger impact to have our youth not continue down this path? I've been working in this system for over 20 years and nothing about it has changed. Nothing about it. And that just, I'm getting a little fiery. I'm gonna calm down because it just needs to be some change that manifests in that. And I think that's part of getting them to understand their power, getting them to understand the family values and things that you put in there. So I appreciate when you said the first environment is the family and how that needs to be connected. You know, Malcolm X did talk about how the government destroyed the Black family, you know, and incentivized the man not being in the home, and women, oh, I don't need a man type of attitude, things going on. But we do need to get back to those core values and preach and teach about that. One of the things that I think you did was great when you went to Howard University, and HBCUs have a huge impact on our families and our connections. And I love
resources. Don't forget resources.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we need to get back to that, you know, pouring back into those educational societies. HBCUs will help. I think, well, they will, not I think, I know they will help promote and educate our communities to be more successful.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, HBCUs hold, I mean, as an institution, an incubator, it holds a lot of power. It really does. But there has to be some type of critical examination for HBCUs. It has to be, because we have to look at where are we trying to go as a community.
Yeah.
This is more of leadership now. Where are we going? Where do we want to go?
Right.
What does it take to actually get there? And whatever it takes to actually get there is what we should be placing emphasis on for our children to be studying.
Yeah.
That's the key. Now, some people will say, oh, but we're not a monolith. Like, yeah, but we're a community. And you can say that you're not a part of that community, and that's fine. But we are a community. And as a community, there means that there's something that unites us. And what unites us has to be more than just the color of our skin. Or just how somebody treated us. Just because they treat us this way, that makes us all the same. No, it has to be a lot more than that. It has to go beyond that physical flesh, that the animalistic values. It has to grow beyond that. And being in this country for so long, we should have graduated to that point. There's no reason why you should go to an HBCU and everyone is reading Carter G. Woodson book, The Miseducation of the Negro. Yet those same principles that is a mandatory reading, these same principles in this book is not necessarily being applied in the school in which you go to. So the book says to study the work of your parents, you know, and do later with the classical information and knowledge, because success shows, or the statistics of success within our community shows, that those who do the work of their parents are much more successful than those who just go after their classical information. So if that is the case, and it's far too often, you have too many African Americans who are graduating with debt, and then they taking up a science, a soft science, like myself, I'm guilty of it, taking up a soft science, and it has very little to nothing to do with their line of work. And it's like 90% of Black women are like actually meet that statistic. And they're the ones that are graduating from these schools at a much higher level than, a much larger rate than Black men. So what we are actually being told to read is not actually being applied at the same schools in which we're graduating from. And it's happening not just in 10 years and 20 years and 30, it's happening in 50 years, 100 years. We are still guilty of the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And it makes little to no sense to me. And it's not that I rarely ever talk about this. I just sort of like examine these type of things.
Yeah.
You know, the things in which we are realizing have really set us back. These things, these principles that have really set us back as a community. A big part of it has happened on the HBCU campus. And that's something that a lot of people don't, because the HBCU is a strong community and we got to uphold it. But we have to be critical too. We have to be critical if we want to advance it. It's not to ruin the institution, it's to augment the act of the institution.
Yes.
Like if I said that, okay, this HBCU, you all notice that the reason why we don't have a strong endowment is because when you look at other institutions, they have a system in which that when a person graduates, they plug them into a system in which they will be successful.
Yeah.
They make sure that they are successful.
Yeah.
The world is too big for them not to be successful. They ensure that they're successful. And by that, it's a part of the culture to give back so that other people could come through the same thing and that you all could keep your power. For us, it's not really being taught like that. Like I graduated from Howard.
All right.
I never had it. And look at the work that I've been doing.
Yeah.
I never really had Howard to reach out to me about anything. But people will say, well, Shareef, you should go to Howard and reach out to Howard, etc. I'm gonna be real with you. Howard was convenient for me. I grew up in DC. I was born and raised in DC. You know, so Howard was extremely convenient for me. You know, I grew up in Southeast DC. Howard was in Northwest. So I would just take the metro and go to school.
Right.
You know, but at that time, I was already married. My wife lived she went to school in upstate New York. And this was literally the closest college. And I wanted to go to HBC. This is like the closest Black college that I would actually want to. There was some other one, but I was like, I'm going to Howard.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of be back at home. So yeah, so I would say the HBCU community needs to have real conversations, and I would love to be a part of it because it has the potential to really transform our community almost overnight.
No, I agree with you. And I would love to be part of that conversation as well.
Yeah.
That'd be an overall community conversation. That would literally, would you say there needs to be a conversation with all the HBCUs to create an actual system that benefits all HBCUs, that so they could work in tandem? And I'm saying that, for example, like I'm not exactly sure, but I know like Morehouse and Clark, yeah, I think Spelman, and Atlanta, they all really close proximity, and they could, kids from Spelman, I think, I'm not exactly sure, kids from Spelman or Clark could transfer classes on another campus, and they could integrate that way and have an actual unit. So it's not just a college campus, it's a community, it's a real community. So you're not individualized. You say, okay, I know I go to Spelman, I know you go to Clark, I know you go to Morehouse, and we all gonna connect together. So do you feel more colleges such as, I would say, like Grambling and Jackson State, and then probably PV, all don't need to have conversations together, like have a group meet or a Facebook,
I feel like it has to happen from, I mean, things change on the student level for sure. The students have a strong impact. But the students really does not necessarily choose. Hold on one second, I'm sorry, hold on one second.
Mm-hmm. Topics.
Yeah, you can go through those because it's 11.
Yeah, 34 minutes in. So you want to move to, we did impact.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. We gotta live, right? Got stuff.
Yeah, I thought I heard something. So, but where were we?
We were talking about the HBCU.
Yeah, that's right.
Creating a system.
Yeah.
So I think that it's going to have to happen on more than one level. I guess that's the point I was making. It has to happen from the leadership of the HBCUs. HBCUs need to, it's a thing where you have to really stand up. If a lot of your funding is coming from institutions that are not amongst your community, you can't expect that to actually save your community. That's the thing. When I walked on Howard's campus and I went to a job fair, and my mind was already in the position of like a We Buy Black. Like I didn't think of the idea yet, but my mind was, I was already like that. I was already, because of my community I come. So when I went into the job fair and I'm looking at all of the people in the job fair, I'm like, none of these are Black businesses. And I would start going to the different things. I say, okay, and I thought this one was a Black business. Oh no, they sent Black people to represent these businesses, but they were not Black businesses.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I'm like, oh no, like that really troubled me. It really bothered me. And I said, well, you know what? This could be a major problem, like because these are our greatest minds. This is like the best of our community is going to college to learn, to educate themselves, and then go out to the work, go out in the work areas and then produce something. However, there's somebody's catching them. We forming these great minds, and then these great minds from elementary all the way up to college, of all of that Black investment. That's a lot of Black investment going into this individual. And then now we're saying, now that you've made it, I'm turning you over to Allstate.
Oh man.
Now that we spent hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, all of our time, all of our energy into preparing you to be great.
Yeah.
We're turning you over to Chrysler. We're turning you over to this. And it's none of those and then we're turning you over to Goldman Sachs and all these other companies. These are not companies from our community, and that's a problem. And it's not to say that we can't work with these companies. That's not to say that. Like, I think that, I mean, the world is global. We should be working with everyone.
Right.
But we have to have a share in that pie. We have to have a share in the world. And that's not what's currently happening. All of these HBCUs are turning, and it didn't used to be like this. This happened only once they broke down a family. It didn't used to be like this, because when you have this is a real thing. When a male is president of a household, he brings a certain level of logic, a certain level of security, and a certain level of protection. And that's not all physical. That's not all physical. A lot of that is spiritual, emotional, and mental. So if a young girl brought a guy to, like, let's say Eugene, you know, this girl, she want to introduce you to her parents, right? Mm-hmm. So you go to her house, you sitting down at dinner, and she actually has a mother and a father in their household. Mm-hmm. And then the mother gonna look at the daughter, she gonna say, girl, he kind of tall, he tall and
those conversations.
You know, she gonna do all of that, you know. But the father is not gonna care nothing about that.
Not at all. You got proof.
Like, I got 3 daughters, I could care less. I'm gonna shake your hand. I want to know how firm your grip is. You know, when I talk to you, I want to see if you're gonna look me in my eye. I want to know what your plans are. I want to know how you're treating my daughter already. I want to know where you're going, what's your future, so these things men bring a certain level of security, a certain level of protection and stability. And these are the things that's absolutely necessary for any community to progress. So if we go to any institution, any community, any church, and we see that it's not properly protected, like you got a lot of women that wear shirts, protect Black women. Mm-hmm. That means that there's something happening where it's that the men in that community is absent. Right. So I believe that, speaking on a transformation level, like you can't really have a movement like We Buy Black without getting to these fundamental levels. Like, you know, business is to help secure and protect the family, right? Majority of relationships, divorces happen because of financial issues. But the marriage has to happen first. So I think that, you know, what we have to do as a community, more than anything, we have to be gung-ho on reestablishing and protecting families.
Absolutely.
It's literally not what's hot today.
Me too.
That was hot today. Goldman Sachs put out.
But I do see a shift in that. I do see a small shift in that, because I used to whine about that all the time, being a Black woman and not seeing the men do what I feel like they should have been doing. So it led me to be more aggressive, to be more independent, to do what I needed to do as who I am, you know, because I don't want things to fall short. I don't want my children to miss out because somebody else doesn't feel like he needs to be present. But I say all that to say that I do see some change. I need to see more. I need to see a grander change to actually see some structure changes, but I do see some tiny.
Yeah. And everybody has to be on board. You know, it's not just the women. The men have to be on board. The women have to be on board. And it has to become the language of the community, the language of the institution. And then over time, these type of things will change. It's not going to happen with your generation. It may happen with Eugene's generation or the generation behind them, because these things were, as you mentioned, Malcolm X said, a lot of these things were instituted through entities that are much greater than us as a community. Right. So, and then we never saw it coming. We never saw it coming. I was just watching a documentary last night an interview last night of a sister named Shahrazad Ali, and I'm listening to how she's sort of talking back in the early 90s of how what she sees is happening with the Black family. And then her predictions is, she wasn't saying it like this is what's going to happen, but she was saying that if we kind of keep this up, then this is what we can look for. And that's actually what's happening today. This is like 30 years later. It's like literally what's happening today. So you could really look at your community and then make predictions, especially in the social sciences. That's what we study. So you can look at the community and make predictions as where we're going to be in the future. And anytime a family, and then not just a family, that's on a micro level, but on a macro level, anytime you have a community, that majority of that community is absent without a father, then what you have is a community who's getting ready to be enslaved. Yes. That's what's getting ready to happen. No, and right. That's not something that just happened, like we're talking about, though. Historically, it's been proven. Right. That community is getting ready to be enslaved. How can we prove it? You could go to any nation or community or tribe when they had the mother and the father in the household, it was stable. It was a stable community. Whenever you saw a great loss in the fathers, typically through war, those families then became the slave of another community or another tribe or another nation. So if someone wanted to take advantage of us, again,
Mm.
There's one way to do it, the same way they did it the first time. During slavery, they got rid of the men. This is literally what they did. And they got rid of them in our minds psychologically by taking that father and chopping his head off in front of the family.
Yeah.
Taking that father and tying his hands behind his back and watching his wife get raped in front of all of the children, so the children could know that their father could not protect them in such a case like that. And then all the other gruesome and extreme things that they did. I can argue that the exact same thing is happening today through movies, through the media, through television, through radio, through everything, through the music, through everything. The exact same thing is happening today. It's just happening in a different way. But there is hope.
Yeah.
There is hope.
Yeah, because when you hear, I just want to add to that Charlemagne and Envy. When they talk about what their mindset was previously, and then changing that in their idea of family and how that changed, and in almost every interview you hear Charlemagne mention that, and Envy also talk about how important a family is, and the guests that they're bringing on, I see them, Kevin Gates, just and that's what I mean when I say a small change. I see a small mindset of change, instead of referring to women in very derogatory languages and saying things that are not of value to families. I'm now hearing more of, yes, my family is important to me. Yes, I want to be there to raise my kids. Yes, I want to create generational wealth. I'm seeing a small change, and that's my hope. That's what I wanted to tell you.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. It's typically like that. It's sort of like this. It's sort of like once your house burns down, right? Like there's nothing there. Then you sort of, somebody's going to grab the umbrella and put it over their head because it's raining there, right? Like, and you have to. It's like you have no choice. That umbrella is a form of hope, because it just means that you're conscious now. Like, it's, even though it's an umbrella, it's not a new house, it's an umbrella, but at least you recognize that you need something over your head. Yeah. So when I see in the culture people who made their livelihood, their successes, the reason why we know of them is because of music that they put out that is derogatory, degrading, and has done a lot of damage, that they're now speaking on the need of family, the need of these different type of things. It's a sign of hope, but it happens way too often. Like we allow for that to happen too often. And again, that goes back to not having a male presence, male leadership. That wouldn't happen. Those are type of things that just wouldn't happen on a watch of like someone like a Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to kill those type of people off. Yeah. And then you have to allow these children to go out and promote this type of lifestyle. And then after 20 years of promoting that type of lifestyle, then they say, oh, you know what? We conscious now. But there's another group that's growing. See, this is the older group now. That's not the younger group anymore. Those people are not as influential. Charlemagne, DJ Envy is not what's hot no more. Let's just be real. You got another group that's growing
underneath them.
Yeah.
Underneath them, that's now promoting the exact same thing, but worse. The language is worse. The things that they promote is worse. And then after 20, 30 years of that, then that group is going to get older, and they're going to be like, you know what, we conscious now. Maybe we should get married. Maybe we should stop smoking and drinking. Maybe we should. And it repeats itself. This is not something new. Like, we saw it with, look at all of the conscious, look at all of the rappers of 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Listen to how they talk now. They got their families, etc. Like, I was looking at young Jeezy. Yeah, Jeezy spent his whole career talking about whatever you've been talking about. So I was listening to a song from Jeezy talking about how white girls and all of this other type. But Jeezy now is a whole different, got his son.
Another character.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, we can't keep allowing it. That is these are the type of things that we got to learn from, and never allow for these people to become our leaders. I'm just gonna give it to you as facts. Like, a lot of people don't hear this from me often, but I like to tell how I see it. And the way I see it is that those people need to shut up. They need to sit down, and they need to listen to those who have proven to have a track record of doing good for our community, period. And then they have to humble themselves to do that too. That takes a very humble person. You saw that even in Muhammad Ali.
Absolutely. Yes.
Muhammad Ali was a person who he was the world champion. He was the world champion, and he talked so much trash. I mean, I'm the greatest.
Yeah.
But then when he got introduced to the nation under Elijah Muhammad, he humbled himself.
Yes, he did.
He humbled himself and realized that all of what he was saying was I mean, it was entertainment, but this was something that was greater for his life. This is something that was bigger for his life, and it reformed him. It actually came at a great time for him. It reformed him, and that's literally why we say that he's one of the greatest of all time. It's not just because of how he boxed in the ring; it's what he represented outside of the ring. Floyd Mayweather is an excellent boxer. I mean, one of the best in my opinion. However, there's a major component of what he's missing. That's why he doesn't get the recognition that he's due. You know, if he had that other component of community consciousness, then we will raise him up as a leader in our community. Especially say it again.
That'd be your impact. Like, how do you impact and influence your people around you?
That's it. That'd be your impact. And that's what we have to hold our community to, more than anything. That we're not going to support you. I don't care who you are. We're not going to support you unless you are advocating the right things for our community, period. It doesn't matter how much money a person comes with. And I'm telling you, that is a very, and I don't mean this in disrespectful, but that's just a very feminine way about it. Mm-hmm. Is if you could just come and just meet the bills, that's all I ask. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because a man should offer more than just meeting the bills. The man should offer more than just financial support. In fact, although that is extremely important, what a man should represent and offer to a family and to a community is much more valuable than financial. Because what if it's a society where money is not a factor?
Right.
That's a thing. What if a society where money is not a factor? What if we have a well, all the water comes out the well, we grow our own food, we grow our own plants, et cetera, et cetera. What if it's a society that money is not really a great factor? Let me put it that way. It's not a great factor. Is that it? Nobody needs a man anymore? So we actually been sold on that lie. And the government has been able to come in, offer that welfare that you was mentioning earlier, surrogating the African-American father, giving her funds. And that's not just the day of the past. That's happening today. Look at all of the funds. Listen to this, please. Look at all of the funds that are being allocated to Black women businesses today. There's no fund that you hear of saying Black men business, Black men in business. We're funding you all. Goldman Sachs put out $10 billion for Black women. $10 billion.
I heard about that. That was just like JP Morgan. They putting out a fund with the master investor Ian Dunlap, and he had talked about how JP Morgan is considering, is it what, $120-200 million towards Black women? It was a lot of money, just like Goldman Sachs. And
why is it the case?
It's to Black women. It says Black women, which is fine.
They do that for nobody else, brother. Like there's no $1 billion fund for Hispanic women, $1 billion fund for Asian women, $1 billion fund. And people will say, oh, but because Black women, no. That's not it. You got to think bigger. You got to look at what happened to us historically. What has happened to us historically? And if anyone can separate, I've seen this because I'm in business, and listen, I've seen this. I've seen myself personally help a family, a mother and a father with children. I helped that family. It was technically the woman's business. It was something that she was working on, but it was a hell of an idea. And the husband was supporting her and helping her in that idea. And I promoted that business, and that business took off. And guess what?
What?
That woman left that man.
Oh,
straight up.
Now what?
Now, how many times have I seen that? How many times have I seen that? Far too many. Far too many.
That's a strong household.
Say it again.
No, I'm trying to.
Would that be a strong?
Why would at that point? Why would she leave him?
But would that be a strong household though? If you have a strong, powerful household, like we said, having men and women work together in tandem. If you have a 2-parent household, you have raised your kids and they growing up to be successful Black leaders and Black thought leaders. What was a breakdown, or what was the lack of communication that happened, or want to do that instead of?
Yeah, it's a lot of factors, man. What I typically look at is how often does it happen? You know, how often does it happen?
How often does it happen?
It happens very often. If it's the situation like what I mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen that a lot, man. I'm not joking. If a woman becomes a millionaire in her family, now before that, they all were struggling, and they were all together. And I'm sure by them struggling, there was a lot of ups and downs. There was a lot of issues. But when money comes into play, and you can go wherever you want, do whatever you want, spend whatever you want, and no one can tell you not to, that creates a lot more friction. You know, and we gotta, you know, those are things that we just gotta look at. Every family is different, but there's a lot of common things in a family. Typically, the man would be having his eye, typically the man should be having his eye on the money and making sure that there's enough money to get the bills paid, because he's the one that's probably gonna be responsible, or at least looked at as the one that needs to be holding that type of weight. So bills getting paid, food on the table, that's important to men. So I can't look at what the scenario was for every case, and I didn't go in every case and interview them.
Right.
I just know that far too often, like, and there's plenty of times when a lot of men in business did well, and you could go to their pages and then their wife smiling, they got a new car, everybody's happy.
It's like the glamorous life.
Yeah, well, not just that it being glamorous, it's just that the family, the man has brought back the bacon or the bread, and now his family is much more relieved. The burden is off of them. He didn't get the money and then go buy some new shoes and a new car.
Or whatever.
Family men, that's last. That's absolutely last. You know, but what I've saw and I'm not saying that this is every case. We all may know a case that is different. I'm just saying far too often I've seen it this way. But it's not to really speak of the individual. That's not, like, typically when I speak and I'm talking about family dynamics, I'm talking to a bigger picture. And that's the part that I think that we miss too much in our community, is the bigger picture. When a family, when you empower women, in fact, this is literally scriptural. Like, I don't know if you all are religious or not, but if you read the scriptures, they say Pharaoh would make an attempt, or Pharaoh would kill off the boys and save the women. So Pharaoh represents a type of system, a pharaohic system. He represents a type of system. To kill off the boys mean to kill off, it didn't say kill off the men and save the women. It said kill off the boys and save the women. So to kill off the boys means to kill the potential in that being to ever becoming a man. That's what it means. So anytime you come into a pharaohic system, and whatever pharaohic system that represents you, anytime you come into a pharaohic system, a pharaohic government, a system, and they have an objective to ensure that a particular type of boy never becomes a man, and at the same time to save the women, to empower the women, then that is the time in which you're living in. And I will argue 100% that that's the time that we in. That there's no fun for Eugene to go in business, and he got $10 million of a fund ready for him to go in business. But there will be a fund if you had a sister. Let's say you had a twin sister. There'd be a fund for you to have $10 million for her.
Right. Yeah.
But everybody in your household, typically, like every household, Chinese, white, it don't matter. Every household looks for the man to be the producer. Every household looks to that. That's nothing new. But if there's all opportunities that are available for everyone except for you, not only is this all these opportunities available for everyone, or at least for your sisters and your mamas, it's available for them. It's not available for you.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So now, what does that do to the family dynamic? What does that do? I've seen it where a wife and a husband The husband took, they had a huge company, but they were getting millions, $3-5 million contracts twice, 3-4 times a year. And what the husband did was, the way he was able to get these contracts was that it was his business. It was the idea of his business for years, 20 years. But he didn't really grow to this level of doing millions and millions of dollars of contracts until he put the business in his wife's name. Because for the federal government, there's like a point system. You get points for being a minority, you get points for being in the military or a vet, and you get points for being women. So imagine if you are a woman, vet, and minority. So you're a black woman veteran. You getting all of them contracts. So he put the business in his wife's name. And all of this time for the last 20 years, he's been taking care of his family. This is the father of the household. But when he put in his wife's name, then business just started to grow. But at the same time, this is when things got really rocky for that family. It's because the woman then saw herself as the provider, the protector, the maintainer. I'm the one that's bringing in these millions. You wasn't doing this before I stepped in the picture. But the truth is, and although that is true, and although she's working hard and helping the business and doing everything she's doing, and she put in a lot of work too, that there was something outside of both of you all's control that you all took advantage of.
Right.
But taking advantage of that came with a cost. And the cost is the destruction of your family. So these are the type of things that need to be talked about ahead of time. It's called family planning, community planning. When you look at the Hispanics and when they go into work, you see their women sometimes with them working on the street, but they don't go back home and the woman is like, you ain't no man, I'm the man. They don't do that. They don't do that. So that's because they have a community plan. We're going to come to America. We're going to share the same car. We're going to share the same house. It's going to be 10 of us in there. If somebody needs something, we all going to put in to make sure that happens. And we're going to grow and grow. We're going to keep, and then there's going to be so many of us that are that not only financially stable, but we're going to be educated, and our family's going to be put together, and we all are going to know what's best for our community because we stay the community throughout the process. Therefore, we will elect a person from amongst us, and then that person is going to put laws in place, is going to put certain things in place that's going to represent the best for our life. And we're going to vote them people in. And we could care less about everybody else. They have a community plan. We don't. That's the difference.
Let me ask you this. As your We Buy Black, as that corporation begins to skyrocket, because it's huge. It's going to be bigger than Amazon. I know it is. And with the support that's going on between that, I know you're mainly in Atlanta, and I really enjoy what you're talking about, and I think it has a lot of value. How can what you're talking about be instituted amongst and shared amongst the community, meaning through mentorship or through a community center or a space where other community members, other families have a way to hear the message, have a way to gather that type of influence in a way, just the knowledge of knowing that. Because if people, I find that here because I look for it, and I look within myself too. So I look for it here as a community to go to for strength, for structure, for information, other than the universities where you have to pay all of this money to get it. Like where else, some churches provide some information, but then it's limited because some churches are just open on Sundays, which that's another conversation.
Get that transportation.
That's another conversation. So having a platform that you have, having the information and knowledge that you have, having the experiences and all of that I find it tremendously of value. How do you then transfer that to said family that doesn't have access?
Yeah. So We Buy Black is a movement. It's mainly answering a financial need within our community. It's not the full picture. It's a part of the picture. It's not the full picture. A lot of what I'm giving you all today, you never hear that on We Buy Black platform. unless I'm being interviewed on the We Buy Black platform. Like,
Mhm.
but that's not something that I'm actually, communicating on that platform. It's something that I'm communicating to you all. So it's just detailing what's next. That's all.
Mhm.
It's detailing what's next. And I honestly feel that the best way is to lead by example,
Absolutely.
right?
First and
It's
foremost.
one thing that I'm saying. I'm talking this out, but I live it too. Like I got married when I was 17. I was 17 years old when I got married. I've been married for 13 years now. I'm 30.
Congratulations.
I appreciate it. We have 4 children. We live here in Atlanta. I take care of my family, right? My wife never paid a bill a day in her life. Never had to.
Wow.
And this was before I was doing We Buy Black. We Buy Black, I didn't get paid from We Buy Black until like the 4th year in business or something like that. So it was big and it was international and all of that, but I ain't reached nothing yet. But I understood how important it was for what we talked, like everything that I mentioned on this call. I understood how important that is. And what I really believe must happen is that look at how our community sort of looks at Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
As a national aspiration. The interesting thing is that it's actually a street. It's a street. It's not a city. It's not a county. It's a street. I mean, I know it's more than just a street, but I'm just saying this. It was a street. Black Wall Street. I mean, it was a neighborhood, of course, because you had Archer and Pine, and it was in a Greenwood neighborhood. But our aspiration is technically for a street. This is something that literally could happen with just a group of like-minded individuals. And these individuals, they could be a part of the same religious community. They don't have to be. They could just be people who aspire to have a protected, insulated community, void of all of these other issues that we find in the world today, where the women are in support of their men, the men are in support of their women, that they all love and work to build each other up and their families, that they sacrifice together and they win together. I think that that's something that is not a difficult ask. I think it's something that could actually happen. And I think that that's probably the next phase that I'm sort of focusing in on.
Gotcha.
And it's because I could say this all day, but people need something to aspire to and know that it's real.
Yes, right. Absolutely.
So that is the next frontier. The next frontier is not necessarily a street, but it may start as a street. It may not necessarily be a neighborhood, but it may start as a neighborhood.
Y'all got a block up there in Atlanta, the Black Wall Street, that little block that's happening out there.
Yeah, they got a lot of different pockets of things actually developing. And again, none of this will be successful if we don't return back to family. None of it will. And
it won't be sustainable.
Sustainable as well.
It won't be sustainable. It just will not. And everyone know, and those who are planning for our future, they know this. So they don't care how many Black Wall Streets you develop. If they can continue to work on the destruction of the family, then they know that whatever you're developing won't be passed down. So you talked a lot earlier, Eugene, about generational wealth. Typically, the people who are speaking of generational wealth put a main focus on the financial aspect of generational wealth. However, if you look at families that have generational wealth, there's certain things that they just do not allow for their children to do. There's certain ways morally that they have to have some type of level of control over, because money absent of morals is an extremely dangerous thing.
Exactly. Yes.
Power absent of morals and ethics is extremely dangerous. So it's not just a passing down of wealth, but wealth is more than financial. And that's that when we hear generational wealth in our community, we typically just associate that with money. but there's a lot that's actually being passed down beyond money that we're not passing down. And I think that the more we are conscious of these things, the more we talk about these things, then a lot of people will get hit and they will start to make these transformations. It's like you could get a person like, really anyone, to really speak on generational wealth and show you how to create a trust and line this up and line all these different type of things up. Mm-hmm. And you can sit there and go through all of that. But then your children are like, yeah, daddy, but you want home. So guess what? We ain't doing none of that, or you die and you leave everything off to your children and they take it and do whatever they want to do with it. They do everything that you wish they never would have done with the money. But guess what? You supplied them. You actually gave them, you funded them doing whatever they did. Yeah. Because you put a focus on generational wealth, but not necessarily ethics, morals, love, just the human development, family development. Those things are critical. And those are things that I'm telling you that I have not seen being properly taught on these campuses. That this is what, forget a business school. We need to go back to how we're going to develop the family. And we have to be willing to start from scratch. That's literally what we have to be willing.
Like you just hit that like real hard for me. So thank you for saying that. And that's real big, because you have my mind going like, okay, yeah, I'm going with which platform. Yeah, they do talk about money, but they do not harp on family and the morals of that family as much as they do for what you just said. That is so true.
But are they open to that conversation?
But there's only one way to find out. We gotta ask.
You need to be open to a conversation and expand your mind and be willing to that, and also be accepting of those morals and the values, that knowing that it's not gonna be a quick buck. You're gonna see the results in 2 days or a month or a year. You got to know that this is generational. This will take time, and you have to fully invest into it to have a strong family dynamic. That way you could actually see the actual change that we see and build that family structure. So definitely hit on a lot of points, and then actually teaching me a lot of things, because it's you hear about, but it's not preached. It's not in the conversation every day. So it don't really resonate as hard when you actually have a conversation with someone you actually look up to, or someone you respect in your community, or someone you actually see. So definitely a huge lesson.
Yeah, I always go out of my way to try to say what I know is probably the most useful thing to say. I know what people want from me, but I also understand what's best. Or at least I believe I understand what's best to give them in the limited time that I have. And if we could get that, then these type of movements like a We Buy Black can be sustained. If even if it's 5 young men and women who understand just those things that I talked about throughout this call, they can take a movement like We Buy Black and ensure that it's successful. But if we don't focus in on those important things, and these are the most basic things, this is on an animal level, you'll see that they know how to have family. They know how to have family.
Right. That's so true.
I was just watching a bird documentary, and just how all these different birds go out of their way to prove themselves.
Exactly.
To the opposite mate. It's very interesting. But
that was phenomenal. Yeah.
It's phenomenal, but we just miss out on these different things in our community. Is, as I mentioned, you go to the HBCU, and I would just say what should happen is it should be a family. If the family building should be a prerequisite.
In college?
In college, it should be a prerequisite. It should be in high school as well, but in college,
high school level.
Yeah, in college, let's take a serious focus on the importance of marriage, the importance of having a mother in the house, the importance of having a father in the house, the importance of both parents being educated, the importance of establishing these different funds like a trust fund and all these other funds, because what we're hurting from today in the African-American community is it all roots back to family. And this is why it's shocking that we don't have a family courses in college, just focusing on, if a woman is married and if a man and a woman are married in a household, then the likelihood of that child being emotionally stable and protected is significantly higher than a family in which a man and a woman just cohabiting, or they don't, they're not married at all, living together. The children going off to college and advancing in further knowledge is significantly higher. I don't remember the numbers, but I'm talking 5-6 times higher. Children not going to prison, especially in the Black community, where we're already 3-4 times higher, more likely to be incarcerated. It's significantly higher if the man is in a household that a child will not go to prison. Significantly higher. On and on and on and on. Like the statistics tells us that if we want to see our community just have basic success, then you have to have a mother and a father married. And I think that we could figure everything else out. Hell, you could go on YouTube and learn how to do 1,000 times more than what you can learn in the college campus. Let's be real. However, and that may actually end up becoming a future if we don't get it together. See, because these community colleges or these colleges have to become an incubator. You got all of these people here at the same time. Let's talk about the importance of ridding everything that you came here with that could potentially be dangerous for your life. Let's get rid of that. Let's showcase it and show why that is troubling, right? Like 1 out of every 3 Black women are going to be sexually abused. 1 out of every 3.
That's facts.
And I know you know this because this is the area that you're in. 1 out of every 3. 1 out of every 4 of men, and it's actually crossing over from 1 out of every 3, almost half of Black women. It's crossing over. So almost 1 out of every 2 Black women is going to be sexually abused. It's crazy. But guess what? Families and children are part of family. There's a much greater risk of the child being sexually molested and abused if the father's not present in the household. In fact, child predators, they say that those who they target are children more vulnerable. They say, well, what do you mean by more vulnerable? Children who do not have a father in the household, because 9 times out of 10, they're gonna have low self-esteem. 9 times out of 10, that even if I did harm them, 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna go to nobody about it because they feel like they can't go to nobody about it. They feel that no one is gonna protect. You see these things? So these are things that we're suffering from in our community, that when a child is sexually abused and molested, their whole life changes.
Their whole life changes, yeah. I know.
So why is this not a part of the basic conversation when you first come into college? This should literally be a part of the discussion, classes on these type of things.
Absolutely, I agree with you.
We're not doing that. All we're doing is creating slaves for somebody else's agenda. That's it.
Absolutely. I will go as far as to say, having our own schools, I challenged my daughter who's 15. And there are things that she didn't feel like she was being nurtured on in her public school. And she felt like she needed to know more. And she's now wanting to go to the HBCU because she feels like, she needs to know more about her culture and about who she was. And I'm learning that too, because it wasn't passed down. My generation, my father is almost 90. Right. And he grew up around that time where we just didn't talk about it. White people did what they did, and he didn't want me to have that experience. So that wasn't anything that was passed down generationally like that. So I say all that to say, I challenged my daughter. I said, look, if you want a school that's going to cater to our children, build it. Do it. There's a community right here. We can have a school that our kids can go to and learn, not, waiting until they're in HBCUs, but actually getting to them now, when they're in kindergarten and they're learning about Harriet Tubman, when they're learning about different community things and cultural things that made us successful and better human beings, and building those morals and values. Not only, I'll get into all of that another day with you about religion and stuff, but it's how we start, like you said, from the family. And if we're going to send our children to a school, let it be a school that incorporates our culture, that incorporates those values, that takes the time to actually infuse what we need to know a long time ago, before him, you know, my children are 10 years apart, I didn't know about what you were just speaking about, the child sexual abuse and that predators. It wasn't anything that was even in my brain to try and teach this one. When I learned from a different program, this program called Darkness to Light, it taught me how to be a better mother, a protector, because at the time it was just me. So I had to teach my daughter how to protect herself. I had to teach her about who she was as a young lady, a young woman, how to use her words. I had to put a shield on her, you know, when she was not around me, and empower her to know that you got to come to me when something's going on. When something's happening with you, here's the language you use to talk to your mom about what's happening with you. So predators don't see her as a vulnerable child. So I had to teach and infuse that in her, but that was taught to me. So later on in life, it was taught to me later on in life. So once I got those values, I was able to then infuse that into my daughter. So I started talking to all my friends about it. Look, we all have children. In order to protect them, we have to teach them how to communicate. We have to teach them how to use their words. We have to teach them how to react amongst other people, you know, and how to come and trust us. We have to be that trust. You know, we have to be that parent in the household that your children can come to with anything, no matter what. You know, respect is very, this tattoo is Hebrew, and it's, I can't see it. This is the African and Negro.
Yeah, I can see that there's a tattoo there, yeah.
Yeah, and it means to respect yourself, you know, and that's high on my value list, you know, it's up there with the morals. So it just, when people talk about respecting each other, that's where we start within our family. We have to be able to communicate with one another and build that out. Like you said, family first is the first environment. I wrote that down. That's probably gonna be on my next t-shirt. And we're gonna just infuse that around the community. The first environment is your family. You gotta do that. You have to have it. You have to have it in order to build communities. We have to have a safe space. We have to have the structure there, and we have to have the respect for one another.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You know, it's I'm exactly see, you know, that was kind of like, that was a good way to end, you know, like we could have just dropped right on that. But I do want to say, you know, when I talk about community planning, it means all hands on deck.
Yes.
That's not the responsibility of one person, one type of person, just a mother, just a father, just a child. No. It's everyone is involved. Primarily the parents though, but everyone is involved. You know, if women in this day and time can go out and get funding for $10 million to do whatever they want to do, that's fine. You know, but that should be a strategy that we should have within our community to leverage that opportunity, because that opportunity came as a way to divide us, but we're going to leverage that opportunity as a way to bring us all together. But in order to do that, we're going to need everyone on the same page. This is what you call community planning, is that you could then go out and you know, we could create these entities, et cetera, and then the women in our community could go and get these massive amounts of funding, and then bring that and then show how the family has done X, Y, and Z with that, and then broadcast that, and then let the people know that this is the direction we want to go in. If that becomes a real thing, the funding is going to stop. So there has to be a plan. There has to be a second plan in place.
Yeah.
To then leverage other opportunities that are out there. We have to see the devil at work before he goes to work. We have to know what his strategy is. We got to know what his plan is. And then we have to create a plan, and then create another plan after that plan. And then know that God is with us as well. So no matter what we do, that's the purpose of our work here on earth. The purpose of our work here on earth is to serve God. And God tells us that in the process of serving him, you're going to be met by an enemy. And an enemy that you're met by, just like in any war, you have to know the strategy of that enemy if you plan to win that war. I read that in The Art of War. Like, that's literally like one of the first things he says. So it's like, you have to know, if you know the strategy, if you know the plan of the person that is your enemy that's going to war against you, the likelihood of you winning that war is very high.
Yes.
But if you go there not knowing anything, you're bound to lose. So what our community has been susceptible of, we've been losing over and over and over again, because we have not been looking at those who are working against us. be it the welfare system or anything, the same thing. The welfare system could have happened, but we just need to have that real conversation with our community to say, listen, the government is going to institute this thing.
Yeah.
And it's the way it's going to work is that they're going to supply you with these funds, but that means that I cannot be in a household if they supply you with these funds, et cetera, et cetera. That could have actually been worked out. That could have been actually been worked out to say, okay, well, listen, get those funds because we're going to need it, right? To get those funds, but don't let that separate us. Don't let that come. And if we feel that it's starting to come against us, then do away with it. We rather starve instead of lose each other.
Yeah.
See, so that's I believe is the next phase for our communities that we're learning as time goes on too. And we have to learn from all of what has happened in our history. And we have to start to insulate ourselves and protect ourselves from those type of things, put plans together collectively, family plans, community plans together. Like I have a group here where my wife and we all had children at the same exact time.
Yeah.
So my son at 9 years old, he's 9, they have a 9-year-old. We got a daughter that's 5, they all have a 5-year-old. We have a daughter that's a 2, they all have a 2-year-old. So we plan families together. You know, now sometimes you may get a person who their child may pass away, or they may have a what do you call it? Stillbirth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what'd you say?
Miscarriage.
Miscarriage. That's the word I was looking for. Miscarriage. They may have a miscarriage, et cetera. That happens, you know, but that's just what happens in community and family planning. But you don't stop, you just keep going. You know, you constantly, and then we say, okay, we got these children, they all same age. Let's put all of our girls in Girl Scouts. Let's put all of our boys in Boy Scouts. Let's put all of them in boxing. And when it's time for boxing, if that man can't go to boxing, I'm gonna pick his children up and we all gonna still go to boxing. They all still gonna learn martial arts. So if we plan communities together, you know, and it's a science to it, you know, but this is the next phase that we have to get into. Family development, community development.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I see that on your shirt. I actually see that on your shirt. So I know y'all with it.
That's our motto. That's what we about. You know, we have to have our communities strong, and without families, we don't have strong communities. If we have broken families, and like I said before, I mean, my passion is with repairing that. You know, I don't like seeing our children in foster care. When all of us are sitting in foster care, that's a broken household. That's a broken community. You know, because they're not growing up with the family values that you're talking about. They're not getting an opportunity to go in boxing classes and things like that. They're sitting, jumping around from house to house or sitting in somebody's juvenile detention center because they don't have the family structure there. You know, so everything you're saying is speaking to me greatly, you know, and family values and first environment. That's why he created these t-shirts, because we wanted to spread that word. We wanted to know, come talk to me about your community. How can we be helpful and impactful in that community? We're not just about the words. We're a podcast, but we are definitely action bearers, because we're out there doing the work as well. You know, speaking to kids, mentoring other young Black people to have their own companies and businesses, and helping them and spread anything that I learn. I share it.
And you learn as time goes on through your own experiences that you could get back that could help save time. So if you've been through more life experiences, this helps speed up the process, at least for me or for the younger generation. That's going to help also build a confident and sustainable family unit over time. And then they don't hit their head, they don't have too many incidents. They could skip over that, they save the time, and next you know, you're actually creating a stronger family unit faster. So they have the principles, they have the values early on. So when as they do transition to adulthood, they're ready to take on that responsibility, they're ready to take on that power, and they're able to have a strong family unit. And then, like I said, that having the word community, if you are very open and willing to have that conversation, you should have that conversation just so you could actually see the benefits that come through it. Now, there's always going to be trouble, but you know the ultimate goal is going to be better for you and overall better for your family. And that's what we're preaching, a family dynamic. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this earlier about humbling ourselves and putting God first, and knowing that God is the head of every household in every community, and that He makes it happen for us.
That's your priorities.
Absolutely.
Have your priorities straight.
Yeah.
Right.
So when you have when you walk with that first, and you know God is your light and your creator, is the power of the universe, everything. You know, he just does it all. You know, when we walk with that strength, it, and like-minded frequencies come together, you know, and that's what we want to promote as well. You know, we want to be out there doing that. That's why I was so encouraged by everything that you were saying. I mean, I know we're supposed to really talk about the company, but I love everything that you're saying. And that's the bigger picture, the broader thing of everything that's going on. And anything that you can infuse in us, because y'all doing some really great things in Atlanta. And I think there's certain things that we can bring here to New Orleans as well, you know. So if there's anything that you want to drop on us for that purpose, please share.
Well, let's do something. I mean, like I said, I haven't been to New Orleans outside of Essence, but if there is something that you all want to plan around that Essence weekend, or, you know, maybe some youth business workshop, or if you wanted to do something outside of Essence, maybe something, you know, early spring, or something coming up, you know, even closer, you know, I'm open, you know, it just depends on whatever kind of program y'all want to put together. I'm fine with it. Maybe there's some partnerships there in New Orleans that you probably want to work with. I'm fine with any of that. You know, and coming in and speaking, as you could see, you know, like I understand how Black Wall Street was created, and I understood what kept it together, you know. And then when they attacked, we also attacked too. We weren't just dying. There was men that lined up and went to war.
Yes, they did.
You know, we didn't necessarily win that, but but let's give credit. There was men that actually went to war and put their life on the line, because they weren't just going to stand back and watch their whole community get slaughtered. And so this was something that back at that time, where over 19% of the, or less of the families were absent without a father, just 19%. But even in that time, that was viewed as something that was like, we got to do better. We're at a time right now where 72% of children who are born into a house are born without a father in it. So this is literally the time that we work. So again, when we don't have that protection, anyone can come in and slaughter us and take us as their captives. And guess what? We have no one there to protect us on a physical level, and then on a psychological, mental, spiritual level as well. And the way that the enemy attacks, he attacks in all forms possible, not just in one.
Right.
We think the years in which we've been in bondage and slavery, that was just physical bondage. No, there was a plan there was a plan on the plantation and then off the plantation of how do you keep these people mentally enslaved, spiritually enslaved, beyond just being physically enslaved. And then they still kept with the physical enslavement too. They didn't stop with that. You know, they didn't stop with, so they don't look at, the devil don't look at one plan. He look at all of it. He look at all of it. And we have to look at the exact same thing. When you look at Black Wall Street was an insulated community. These people didn't just work on that street and in that neighborhood. They worked in all other places. But they took those funds that they worked in all other places, brought it back to their community, and it never left. So they had money coming in that never went out. So that's why it was developing so fast. You see, we have money coming in and then money going right out. We got Black folk, we work everywhere. We all got jobs. But as soon as it come in, we go and give it to everybody. So we're like bleeding. It's like a body where the blood is just bleeding out, you know, and, but again, as I mentioned earlier, there is hope, because believe it or not, what I'm saying is going to catch, just like it caught with We Buy Black. Like when we did We Buy Black, you know how many emails I got from people saying, this ain't it. You know, Black people ain't gonna support each other, blah, blah. I heard it all. I had so many businesses saying, I can't use that name. But then after George Floyd and all of that, every business is Black on their sign. Every last one of them.
Yeah, they got tags.
These are the same people who told me to my face they couldn't work with me, literally. So I know, see, the best plan to have, or the best knowledge to have, is to know God's plan.
Amen.
That's the best knowledge to have. When you know God's plan, it doesn't matter what no one is doing. It doesn't matter what time they're doing it in. If you know God's plan and you working in God's plan, you will win. You may not even see the day in which you will win, but you will be successful. everything comes back to the way God wanted. I don't care what the world looks like and how bad it looks. We start putting in plans. We start looking at, okay, well, what does God want for us? He wants us to be this way. He tells us to do this thing. And like God says in the Quran, he says that he forbids us for any intoxicants. It doesn't say alcohol. It doesn't say, liquor or liquid. It says intoxicants, period. But if you look at intoxicants, if you look at alcohol, not only because God only wants the best for your life. He created you, so he wants the best for you.
Absolutely.
And not only does he want the best for you, who's better to give you guidance other than the one that created you? So if that is the case, if God tells you not to take in any intoxicants, then that means that if you do take in any intoxicants, then it's going to be detrimental to your life. So science today has proven that alcohol kills brain cells. Mm-hmm. It kills brain cells. Not only does alcohol kill brain cells, alcohol and any type of drug-related activity contributes to 80% of the reason in which people are in prison today. 80%. And then guess who the majority of people that are in prison? What community is the majority of people in? It's our people. So wouldn't it be wise for us as leaders in our community to heavily advise our community to not drink alcohol? Mm-hmm. If 80% of those in the prison system are in there because of drug-related activity, then that means that we should be the advocates. Black people should be the advocates, not just for damn representation and having a Black woman on a billboard of Home Depot. We should be advocates for things like not taking on any intoxicants, ridding drugs from our community. Do not drink alcohol. These things have been proven to ruin our families and ruin our communities. And that is the type of stance that we should take. We should take the Black community should become a moral community. And if we become a moral community that focuses in on the advancement of human life, not just Black life, but human life under the confines of what God tells us to do, then I guarantee you that that will be the group, even if it's 10 of us, that will be the group that will not only be responsible for saving the Black community as a whole, but it will also be responsible for saving the world. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, it was great. Great opinion.
That was powerful.
That was very powerful. Thank you.
Very powerful and highly respected.
Yeah, we're going to be replaying that over and over.
Definitely. Very powerful, very respected, and high level conversation. Shout out to 19 Keys. We definitely need to have these conversations, and like definitely want to appreciate that for teaching the people and then teaching me as well about these new values and this new family structure and family planning, because you don't hear it on a daily basis. You just hear all the other distractions, and that gets sucked in because you're surrounded in your environment. But if you hear the proper motive, the proper family structure, just think of the impact you're going to see in your environment. And then that's changing the environment where your kids are living and located. And that's so you could, instead of changing the man and taking the man out the environment, change the environment as a whole, because it's so difficult to get the man out that environment. So if I change the environment, I change more people and have a greater impact. So I definitely appreciate that.
I am so enjoying this conversation. I know you have a busy day. Yeah. And we could probably talk to you all day if time allotted, because this is a powerful conversation. And like I said, it's going to be on repeat. It will be on repeat. It will be aired out so people can know how we feel, how we're trying to move forward as a community. Now, like you said, not only just as a Black community, but as a human community, as we are, and we travel together through this journey that God has set before us. And I think that's very powerful, very, very powerful. And I can't wait to see, well, hopefully I do see more change. I do see more positivity. And I'm looking forward to that big conversation. You are formally invited to New Orleans. Okay. We're going to sit down and we're going to have that panel. We're going to have that forum. We're going to put that together. Okay. And I need you there seated at the table, and we're going to get the rest of them together. This one right here is always harassing the politicians. He put them on notice, and I'm that secret stalkers. And like, if I require an answer, I'm going to find it, because we are solutions. We're about solutions. We're about building community and family. And the only way we're going to do that is by holding leadership accountable. You know, we got to advocate for that.
And in partnerships, like also, like I said, with Level Water, who's here, and that Black home, and just having that family structure to say, coming together in partnership and help each other out. That's something I also do with connecting with these Black-owned companies that in New Orleans and talking to them, have real conversation like we're talking now about being about community development and community planning. And the people I met so far, they're on board. And I always try to get their opinion. I'm not convincing, I'm just wanting their opinion and how they're thinking. That's so we could have an open conversation. Because once you have an open conversation, then you can start taking action. You could have a plan, and once you have a plan, you can start executing. Once you start executing, that's you're gonna have an impact. So that's what we're about, and that's what we want to see.
Yeah, that's what we want to see. So, Brother Shareef, thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I really do.
Yeah, and you are, you were answering my questions as you were talking.
Oh.
And I know you didn't know that because I didn't send you no questions. But you were answering my questions and some of the little things that I wanted to know about you as well. So like, what documentary are you favoring today, and what book are you reading right now? And what book would you suggest for our families to take home? Okay,
I would say then, to be straight with you all, I would advise every African-American household to at least read the Quran.
Okay.
I would advise that.
Mm-hmm.
And there are many reasons why. I know that we typically like to shy away from religious conversations in the Black community, and there's a reason for that. And it's not in our control, believe it or not. That's not intentional. I mean, that is intentional, and we have very little to do with that, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I get it as well. I mean, hell, the people who enslaved us use religion to do it. Yes. And that is a very, very scary thing. Once you become conscious to think that you could, even entertain anything dealing with religion is a very scary thing, especially when you look out in the world and see what man has done in the world in the name of religion, in many religions. The religion of Islam, Christianity, Judaism, it's a very scary thing. It will make you not want to be involved with that at all. But again, I know how the devil works, and I know what the devil does. And that's one of his strategies. His strategy is to make you think that way. And I would advise every household to read it, because this is the book that claims to not have been tampered with by man, but has come directly from God. And if that is the case, whether people accept that or not, if that is the case, is due for an intelligent person, is due your respect to at least read it. That if this book is the only book that actually claims that it actually comes from God and has not been tampered with by man, changed, altered by man, then on a logical level of trying to have guidance from God, is due your time and attention, even if it's for 10 minutes a day. And I say that would be the book that I would recommend. The second thing too, I think you asked about documentaries. Yeah. Because I'm a documentary buff as well as books. So those two things I wanted to know what you were into. Well, they put out a recent documentary of, there's a documentary. Yeah, it's a DW documentary that you've probably seen. It's a DW documentary. It's called like the Wealthy of Atlanta, or something to that extent. But I'm featured on that. I'm featured on that documentary along with a few other notable people. Okay. Maggie Anderson, Don Peebles, and a few others. So if you check it out, it kind of goes into like those who are living in Atlanta, how they're living in Atlanta, but it's around the Black and wealthy. I don't claim to be any of that, but it just, well, I mean, Yeah, you don't hear me say those things. Yeah. But I'm asking that you all view it, because you could see clearly the type of balance that we sort of give to that type of documentary. We are action-based movement that just as you got that water in your hand, there's a lot of other items that if we just had a tent in New Orleans, if it was a little small storefront, or if there was a bigger store that someone owned that we could just help stock the shelves, not only could we
help circulate the dollars in our community. Not only could we make sure that people got toilet tissue, mouthwash, toothbrushes, the laundry detergent, dish soap, on and on, trash bags, these things that we spend our money on every single day. In fact, I'll say this, I was just in Publix and I ran, it's a store here in Atlanta. I ran in there because I wanted to get a protein shake before I worked out. Mm-hmm. When I ran in, I saw a young guy in there with his daughter, and I knew his family. His family had just opened up a meat market, like a small grocery store meat market. And they were carrying the products. They were carrying some of the products that we have, like the trash bag, the sandwich bags, etc. And when I saw him in the store, he was grabbing, he said, I just got to get one more thing. Mm-hmm. And he reached up on the shelf and he was grabbing sandwich bags. And I looked at it and I told him, I said, hold on. But like don't buy that here. Mm-hmm. I said, just wait. I said, did you know that your that is his uncle, technically. I said, did you know that your uncle opened up the store? He said, yeah, I know. I said, don't you know he's carrying our sandwich bags in there? He said, y'all got sandwich bags? I said, yeah, we got sandwich bags. I said, so don't buy that here. Just go, once he open up in a couple of hours, just go get it from there. Done deal. But this is what can happen just by doing small things like that. We're consciously reminding our community to look to us first. That's what Black Wall Street was about. You got your painters, you got your electricians, you got your the people who do masonry work, brick builders. You have everything that you need, everything that your plumbers, HVAC, everything to be right there in the same community. You don't have to necessarily be on the same street, but you operate as if you're on the same street. Right. You could be across the world, but you operate as if you're on the same street. And We Buy Black is more symbolic than it is practical. Mm-hmm. People have transformed their lives just because they were able to buy a toothbrush online, the Black-owned toothbrush online. That their whole mindset has changed. The way that they think, the things that they do every day has changed just because that was possible. So I would say that would be the documentary, and that would definitely be the book.
Okay. Well, I am looking forward to more talks with you. Definitely. You got my mind really running right here. I got some ideas and things that I'm going to be sending out. Like I said, you formally invited to New Orleans. We're going to put on this panel and forum and talk more about everything that we talked about today and how to put that into action, because I think, like I said, y'all doing great things in Atlanta. There are certain things that we could copy and paste here in New Orleans to improve our communities on a different level.
This is everywhere.
Oh yeah, everywhere. But we live here right now, so
but, it's not just us. Anybody who sees this, they could take the same thing they learn here and apply their own community, and it creates a very sustainable system. So definitely apply it anywhere and everywhere. So.
And anything that we can do for you, let us know as our podcast, as our movement, as we are humans here too. We want to be helpful. We want to be supportive. So if there's anything that we can do, please let us know. Let us know what we can do. We're going to be out there this weekend. We want to link up and see what y'all doing in the brick and mortars. We're going to bring back some products here and show our community members here who have their brick and mortars. We have a few that just opened up brick and mortars, and we want to make sure that they have your products in that too.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm all for that.
So I hope people say, listen, this is a powerful conversation that we're having, and definitely go back. You might have to replay it a couple times. I know I will. Definitely, it's a powerful conversation that we just have, and definitely continue to have it and have you can't have an open mind and just go into it. Like I said, you don't have to accept it, but it's just something just to think about. Just have those conversations, just have an open conversation and put your house closed mind at one point and branching out, having more exposure, definitely open mind to new opportunities and new possibilities. But in myself, that gave me new confidence that I could take on new challenges. So definitely keep learning, keep educating, and that's how you're gonna grow your knowledge, and you're gonna see the impact and the community impact you see around you and your environment. So definitely, I want to appreciate you. Definitely. Well,
I appreciate y'all. I appreciate the invite.
Oh yeah, good work. We still have more to talk about. We got to talk about these Airbnbs. We got to talk about how we're gonna make all of that work. So I look forward to all of that.
Most definitely. Right.
All right. Appreciate it. You want to say? Well, I'm gonna say thank you for breaking bread, right?
Well, yeah. Thank
Say
you
that.
for being part of Breaking Bread in our community. And I look forward to seeing you, Brother Shareef. Anything that you need from us here in the NOLA community, let us know. We have lots of opportunities to do much. We have people who do shirts and banners.
We have a lot.
We have some books. We have some books. So whatever you need, just hit us up.
Most definitely. Thank y'all.
Thank you so much. Peace and blessings and everything that you do in your journey. We will be in touch.
Hey, what you talking about? Yeah. If nothing is for sure, nothing is for certain. If nothing lasts forever, then until they close the curtain. I'm just trying to find my purpose. Yeah, I'm just trying to find my purpose. Hey, if nothing is for sure, nothing is for certain. If nothing lasts forever, then until they close the curtain.